There's a lot of things written about me in the press, and no one really knows the true story and what really happened. I was very crazy in my early 20s.
This could have gone without doing.
My dating life. How much money do I make from OnlyFans? I felt like I was having sex with like a member of the royal family. Stepping back from the industry of modelling means you have so much insight and have so much gossip about it. You wouldn't even believe. Can't even say it because it's too much. I'm like crying. Now I look back at it, I'm like, that is crazy. Like, you are wild. I didn't have anyone to talk to about what I was going through.
I have struggled so much since I was young with depression and anxiety.
Dealing with drugs and dealing with alcohol and dealing with mental health. And everyone just wanted to be around me to have a good time. And then I had my agency who didn't really care unless I showed up on set. I have flashbacks of situations where I would be crying in the bathroom, you know, not wanting to go to set and things like that. Because I didn't feel happy and no one really cared unless I was there. If you're a loving dream on, you can easily support the show by clicking subscribe. And in exchange for that, I will keep telling you all of my crazy stories and keep bringing my guests on to share their own. And if you click the link in the description, you can submit your bedtime stories and I will help you out and might even give you a ring. I have been wanting to do a podcast for a really long time now, and I feel like this is the perfect time for me to divulge all my deepest, darkest secrets and all of the things that I think everyone's just been wanting to know, because I feel like sometimes there's a lot of things written about me in the press and no one really knows the true story and what really happened. I'm excited to have loads of new guests on, lots of friends on, and just have some really juicy chats. So to dive into a little bit of a backstory about me, if you don't know who I am Lottie Moss. I rose to fame, if you could say that, through my sister, Kate Moss, who is my half-sister. I was scouted at her wedding and there was a lot of articles written saying, who is she? The Kate Moss's half-sister. And through that, I got scouted by a talent and modelling agency. And I was with them until, I think, 2021. Yeah, 2021. So I modelled for years. I modelled for brands like Chanel. I modelled for Vogue, Tatler, so many different magazines. I had my own clothing brand with PacSun. I had a fragrance, which didn't do very well, shockingly. But it did smell good though, and I actually still have it on my shelf. I actually did runway for a while as well. Walked for Tommy Hilfiger. I walked for Chanel. I walked for Sonia Rykiel, lots of amazing designer brands. Then I started doing OnlyFans, much to everyone's shock. I think it probably wasn't the best thing I could have done at the time. I was in a bit of a weird place, but I think it's definitely made me who I am today. And now I have so many different views and so many different thoughts and ideas about this industry. I think stepping back from the industry of modelling and taking a little look from the outside and, I mean, even the inside means you have so much insight and have so much gossip about it as well. Like you wouldn't even believe. So yeah, basically I'm just going to come on here and talk about everything. So going back to my early life, I was brought up and raised in Sussex, in West Sussex with my family. I was very young when I was scouted. I was about 13 years old. I did my first test shoot. I grew up in a very sort of humble background. My parents weren't, making a lot of money and things like that. So this was my first sort of taste into the life of luxury. And when I tell you, I was like, this is me. This is what I was meant to be living. I was wearing all these designer outfits and all this nice jewelry, and I had my hair and makeup done. And I was like, this is what I was meant to live. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't meant to be living in Sussex with the cows. I was meant to be in these designer outfits. And it was amazing. I mean, I loved it at first. It was amazing. So at the time I was still in school. So I was 13 when I did my first test shoot and still in school. So they eased me into it. So I was doing a few jobs here and there, nothing very, very intense because obviously, I still had to learn whatever I did learn, which wasn't a lot. So I was at secondary school and I had fallen in love, as we all do. I fell in love with a guy and he was at a private school. And at my age, I was about 15 when I started going out with him. And he was going to his private school and I met all of his friends, loved his friends. So I was like, right, I want to go to the school that he's going to. I am psychotic, yes. To answer your question, mental illness is in the family. So I decided that I wanted to go to the exact school that he went to, even after we broke up. So I decided that I'm going to pay the money to go to his private school. This private school, by the way, £30,000 a year. I spent £30,000 a year for 2 years to go to the same school as him, even though he dumped my ass. He didn't care. He was like, goodbye. And I was like, hello, showed up to the first day of school. I didn't even tell him, by the way. I showed up to the first day of school and he's like, why are you here? And I'm like, for you, for us, actually. So went to this private school. I was still modeling at the time. And just to let you know, we did not get back together. By the way, when you follow a man to his school, he won't date you. Like, that's not going to happen. I think he just thinks that you're slightly crazy. After that, I did in fact fall for his friend, which got even crazier. I can't even say it because it's too much. I'm like crying. You know, I told my therapist this and she was like scribbling notes. She was scribbling down these notes being like, you need help. Because I hadn't told the story in years because I thought someone's going to admit me if I tell the story. Like, I'm sorry, I can't. Saying it out loud, by the way, like I've got tears in my eyes. Saying it out loud makes me feel like I need help. Like maybe I should be admitted. Maybe I should just walk into one of the clinics down the road. Like I think they'd take me. But anyway, so I'm modeling. You know, my ex-boyfriend is there, probably terrified of me. And modeling, doing loads of stuff. I'm traveling, like, it's so weird when you're at school 1 minute and then traveling to LA to shoot with like Gigi Hadid and all these people the next minute. And I think this was the first time in my life where I really felt like, God, like this is going to be actually quite tricky. I think as well because I was young and I was just getting introduced to sort of alcohol and just sort of meeting new people. And as well because all my friends that were going to my school were from such like, you know, countryside and they were very normal. And then the other half of my life was going to LA and going to London for these amazing events where there was all these celebrities and all this alcohol and all these drugs and everything. And I think the parallel between the two, because I felt like Hannah Montana. Like, I'm not going to lie, it was not the best of both worlds. It was the worst of both worlds. It was crazy for me, I think. And so when I hit 18, I said to my mum, adios, I'm moving out. I am gone. I really just wanted, I think because I'd had a taste of freedom at that age and I was 18 when I left school. And I think I just had this taste of freedom and I was just like desperate for it. I was like, I need to just leave and get out and move to London and be with all these people. But I think now looking back on it in hindsight, I think maybe was not the best idea because it was like they let a bull out and it was the red, you know, what's got the red flag, and I just ran towards it. I was very crazy in my early 20s, as I'm sure that everyone's seen. If you have not, check out the Daily Mail. Thanks, guys. Shout out to you guys out there for literally making my life a living hell. So my early 20s were pretty difficult. I was very crazy and I was also undiagnosed ADHD. So the medication was nowhere to be seen. So I was very much self-medicating. I mean, we'll get onto this in maybe another episode or another, you know, later on in this episode, but it's very difficult when you don't understand why you are the way that you are and why everyone's brains function in the ways that they do and you don't function like that. So I'd see all these other models that were like so demure and just saying, oh, I'm just, you know, like modeling for Chanel. I'm like, it's not a big deal. And I couldn't handle it. I just could not understand how everyone was just like, I'll just have one champagne, please. Like, you know, just, you know, have one like runner bean as my lunch. Like I was like, I want the ham and cheese panini with like extra cheese. And I want to like, you know, have 25 tequila shots and all of this. I couldn't understand how all these models were just handling it so well. I think that definitely was difficult in my early 20s when you're just, everyone around you is kind of giving you the, you know, the option of that. And especially when you're going to all these events and things like that, these modeling events, they ply you with alcohol. No one tells you this, but they literally free drinks here, free drinks there. And I think maybe down to mismanagement as well of some of the people at my agency. When you take on someone very, very young who is, first started at 13 and she's modeling throughout her teens and then hits 20 and then finally moves into a flat where she doesn't have her mum to look after her. She doesn't have anyone telling her, right, now you have to come home from this event. I hit London and I was just like, right, there's no one telling me I have to go home. So I was drinking and doing whatever else. And I was missing a lot of jobs. I was very scandalous back in the day. And I want to actually do an episode where I go through my Daily Mail articles and we speak about each one because it is actually so funny. Each one has a story. But there were so many people in my 20s that were doing the exact same thing as me, going out, getting drunk, doing drugs. And no one else was getting any stick for it because they were not in the press every day. I had paparazzi outside my house in the bushes. I had them outside every club, every restaurant. If I was on a date, they were there. They were scaring off the men, which is crazy because you would think that they would like it and be like, oh my God, I'm going to be famous. But no, they were like, you're going to kill my job off, So that was difficult as well. I think I felt very alone because I didn't really know that many people really, it was more party friends. But I just didn't know that many people that were really, true and pure. I didn't have very close friends. It was all party friends. So I didn't have anyone to talk to about what I was going through, which was rising to fame through someone who was already very famous, which was my sister. And, dealing with drugs and dealing with alcohol and dealing with mental health. And everyone just wanted to be around me to have a good time. And then I had my agency who didn't really care. Unless I showed up on set, they didn't really give two shits about what I was doing, in my spare time or if I wasn't doing very well. I have moments and flashbacks of situations where I would be crying in the bathroom, not wanting to go to set and things like that. Because I didn't feel happy and no one really cared unless I was there. So that took a huge toll on my mental health. I think there definitely is somewhat to blame the media and the press for people who are young and, not young even, just people in general who are celebrities or people who are in the public eye, who are just getting crucified on the internet and in the press, which is so wild to me because all the people in the press that will crucify these people will either when something really bad happens, they will come back and say, oh my gosh, what a shame, what a tragedy. We've seen what's happened to people like Pamela Anderson. We've seen what happened to people like Caroline Flack, Amy Winehouse. All these people that have been subject to the most distressing things, paparazzi following them everywhere. Every single move that they make is just completely, hammered down on. And there's people watching them with a bird's eye view. Of course, you're going to make mistakes. Of course, you're not going to be perfect. Of course, you're going to have your own problems. And then when something bad happens, they go, oh my gosh, what a shame. What? That makes zero sense. Or even 10 years later or 20 years later, like Pamela Anderson, people exiled her from the industry, from film, which she really loved doing. And now everyone's gone, oh, well, she's an icon. Well, this is it. What happened to 20 years ago when she really needed it? And it's just so sad that no one, I know times change and times have changed, but I do still think that there is massive scrutiny on celebrities and people in the public eye to be perfect and to be, suddenly they have to be a role model, which is crazy. And, you hear more and more about people coming out and sort of saying that they were struggling or they are struggling, whether it's mental health, whether it's drugs, whether it's family issues. And I think some people feel like they can't talk about it as well because people don't want to hear celebrities complaining. Let's be honest. It's a weird one. I think I heard Lewis Capaldi doing an interview recently where he was saying about how no one really wants to hear about, if we complain, it's like, well, at least you're rich and you're selling out shows. And it's yeah, but that doesn't mean that you are allowed to be crucified by the press and crucified by everyone online who has not lived your life, who has not been in your story at all, who's not seen what you've been through. I think that I felt that massively of when I was going out a lot when I was younger and I was first in the press and I was doing a lot of modeling. And, obviously I was doing all these amazing brands and things like that. But behind the scenes, my mental health was very, very low. Obviously, no one really knew that because I was presenting myself, through my agencies, guys. They were presenting me as this sort of like English rose, which is, by the way, if you know me now, that's not me. But I was this English rose who was like very pretty. I never had very much makeup on. I was doing all these really like high-end brands like Christian Louboutin and like all these things. And I just felt I wasn't really allowed to express myself either. So when that control slipped, which the only times where I didn't really have a control over me and I didn't have agents around or I didn't have my, whatever whole team around me, was when I was going out clubbing in the evenings. And so when I did, I went out. It was messy. And another crazy thing is, and I remember a story about me, which was me going out several nights a week. And they had the paparazzi had taken a picture of me each night. And the Daily Mail, I think it was, or some sort of publication had said that, they'd put a timeline together of each night that I'd gone out. So they said she went out this night, she went out that night, she went out that night. I was like 19 years old. Of course I was going to go out. Most, young people my age at that time were in university or were going out the exact same amount as me, but I was getting scrutinized for it. And I was around a lot of people that, I was actually dating someone from Made in Chelsea when I was younger, and a few people from that show actually got caught, with drugs and stuff in the press and got completely scrutinized for it, which is crazy because I've been in this industry and I see how many people, not just the talent, but, agents or people that are people that are working for the brands and things like that. They are all doing the drugs and they are all drinking with you and they get nothing from it. They get no scrutiny from it because they are not in the public eye. And it is just crazy to me how we scrutinize these people because we put them on a pedestal. And I think this is the problem, is putting people that we don't know on a pedestal because, we all have issues. And I think it's crazy that we can humanize our friends and our family and people around us, but not the people that we see in the media. And we've seen what it's done to all these people. So why do we continue to do it? So another topic that I know a lot of you are dying to hear about, because I think it's probably the most, not taboo topic, but I think it's very strange to a lot of people because a lot of people don't know about it, is OnlyFans. And I've been doing OnlyFans now for 3 years. And the way I started getting into it was through an old friend of mine. We do not speak now, not for this reason, for other reasons, which I will divulge because it's a crazy story. But we met. I was living in LA at the time. It was just after COVID. And I was sort of thinking of something that I could do which didn't involve modeling. It had massively slowed down after the pandemic. Obviously we couldn't leave our houses, so going on photo shoots was a no-go. And I was just sort of thinking, what can I do now? I'd had a lot of time to think and sit with myself about my career in modeling and, sit there and really think about what I'd been through in those years. And I just decided it wasn't really for me anymore. So I met this girl. I was living in LA at the time. We were actually in Mexico. I met her and her new boyfriend. It was a friend that I'd had for about 2 years prior. And she was doing OnlyFans. And she was telling me how lucrative it is. And her boyfriend at the time was starting a competitor to OnlyFans, which has now been sold to Playboy and is now Playboy Centerfold, which I now have shares in. Slay. But at the time, he was starting this company with 2 other guys. And she was like, you should do this with me. So I wasn't doing OnlyFans specifically. It was more this company that I was doing it with. And it turned out to be a little bit dodgy, I'm not going to lie, because it was her boyfriend doing it. And he had little to no experience with generally women. It was just strange. His 2 friends that were doing it with him, his business partners, were amazing. And he just was not, let's be honest. He did not know how to speak to women. I didn't really like him. But I was doing this for a while. I'd made a lot of money in my first month. And then I decided to do OnlyFans instead because this just was not going so well. And I was living in LA at the time with my friend and her boyfriend. So when I was doing it, you have to picture this. I was living in Beverly Hills with these 2. We were in this 1940s-esque house. It was gorgeous and it was hot and we were taking all these naked pictures and running around this like huge house in Beverly Hills. It was very glamorous, actually. And I think people think I came into it because I was like in this like really bad place in my life and it was just like all going wrong, which is actually kind of the opposite. I'd kind of realized that modeling stood for something that I wasn't really a fan of. And when I found OnlyFans, I met all these girls that were very similar to me. Like I always wanted to be a little bit more risque. I always wanted to like get my body out. And I loved like, I'm a very like liberal person. I like being a little bit cheeky, a little bit naughty, a bit naked, a little bit out there. And this girl that I was living with at the time, who was the friend who'd introduced me to her boyfriend who was doing this company, she was the same as me. And I really related to that. And I loved that I'd met someone that could kind of understand me for the first time. Because in modeling, as I was saying, it was all these very demure girls who were like, we're doing these designer brands and we can't say bad words and we can't, be naked or anything. And it was the first time I'd met people that were just like, fuck it, And I think that's very much my attitude is like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. I was very rebellious at this time. I think I was about 22. And I'd met all these other girls. And so we were shooting in this Beverly Hills house. Loads of girls would come over. We'd all shoot together. I was meeting all these new OnlyFans girls. Some girls were doing more risque stuff, more pornography. Some were doing literally lingerie content and making like hundreds of thousands a month, which is crazy. And so I just started doing it that way and making loads of money. By the way, the money is a huge part of it. And I think considering the pornography industry has been a place where there has been a lot of money made, but not specifically to the girls doing it, more to the men who are running it. And I think a lot of girls just got sick of that and found this platform and were like, this is amazing. I can do what I want to do, which is porn or, nude content or adult content, and do it without somebody else making the profits. Like I'm making, 80% because 20% goes to OnlyFans, but 80% of my own money, So I think it is a very good platform for girls like that. And meeting all these girls, I think people think are very like, oh my God, porn stars and things like that. These girls are the most kind, cool, fucking down-to-earth people I've ever met in my life. And it's so crazy because you would never think when you speak to them. Some of them are so shy. And you're speaking to them and they're like, oh, hi, let's shoot together. And then you get on set and they're like, like it's crazy, the switch up. But I guess it is acting in a way. So I think I just really found like a home in that. And I'd really found, these people in LA that weren't judgmental of it either. There's so many OnlyFans girls in LA. There's so many porn stars in LA. And people really just accept them into the society. People are really just really cool with them and nobody really asks many questions about it. And then I moved back to London and this is where it got real for me because all my friends thought I was having a serious mental breakdown, which I understand because it is quite strange that I went from doing really high fashion modeling to doing something which is probably not seen from, that industry as very like cool. It's seen as a little bit tacky. It's seen as a little bit like, gross. But I didn't really realize that. I think because I was living in this bubble of LA, I didn't think people would rain down on it so much. I did see an article though from the Daily Mail, the usual suspects, which said, and it was a woman who wrote this article, and she said, Lottie Moss hits rock bottom. And at the time, I was living in Beverly Hills in a mansion. And I was like, girl, if this is rock bottom, I'll stay here. So I honestly, and I felt really petty for this, but I kind of wanted to just like send her something really expensive and be like, yeah, so this is really rock bottom for me, huh? But I was like, I'm better than that. That's not nice. But I just thought as well, a woman writing a whole article about how I'd hit rock bottom. She mentioned my family, all of these things. So I did have a hunch that people were not going to be as forgiving about it when I got back to the UK. But nothing like how I felt when I did get back, which was, I'd lost a lot of friends as well from the modeling industry. my mum didn't speak to me for weeks. My family was a little bit in turmoil over it. But I think if they'd sort of seen how it happened and met other people like that, maybe they would have understood a little bit more. So yeah, it was a bit of a crazy one, really. But I'm still doing it to this day. And I do really, really enjoy it. I think there's other things now that I'm a little bit older that I'd like to do more. But it was a perfect transition. I got to meet loads of really fun people. And this just allowed me to have the freedom to sort of live my life and, you know, fix my mental health a little bit, essentially. I went to a rehab facility for depression, and I really managed to fix myself and heal myself and just be me and kind of figure out who I am. I mean, for years with modeling, I'd just been told who I was and been put down this alley of like, this is who you are. You're Kate Moss's sister. You're going to be part 2 of her, basically. And it just so wasn't me. I mean, maybe the rock and roll thing maybe was a little bit me, but everything else just didn't fit me. And so I was kind of still figuring out who I was. And I think OnlyFans has really allowed me to do that. So I am eternally grateful to them for this opportunity to be able to, you know, work with them. And I have actually done a talk with them. I went to a web summit. I spoke with the CEO. We answered lots of questions and spoke about how amazing it is to have a platform like this, you know, to have creative freedom over yourself and your body and how you look. So yeah. And now we are on to a very juicy subject, which is my dating life. I don't even know where to start with this, quite frankly, because it is like, you know, when you see a car accident on the M25 and you want to look, but you also don't because it might scar you. That is similar to my dating life. It's like a big old accident that it just really is. Where I found the men that I was dating in my 20s, probably the deep crevices of hell, because I honestly don't run into these people normally in my life. And even in the last sort of 2 years of my life, where I don't date these guys anymore, for obvious reasons that you will find out. But I honestly don't run into these people anymore. I think, where did I find them? Like, where did I find them? I don't know whether they just came for me because I was in a pretty bad place in my life, I think, at the time. So I think I was going for men that I found were to be, you know, emotionally unavailable, narcissistic, abusive, and just terrible all around, really. I started out not bad. I'm not going to shit on this guy. I mean, I will a little bit, but not super. So one of my first boyfriends when I first moved to London when I was 18 was Alex Mitten from the popular show on Channel 4, which is Made in Chelsea. And you know what? He wasn't all bad. He was going through a lot at the time. It was my first relationship. I was 18 years old. I didn't really know what I was doing. It was very much like typical first relationship. So this was straight off the bat of my last relationship, which I moved schools for, by the way. So you can imagine my frame of mind at this time. Still kind of crazy, but it had gotten a little bit better than moving schools for someone. But this was definitely my first love, I would say. And, you know, he introduced me to the scene. It was within the first few months of me moving to London, and I just thought he was so cool. I'd watched Made in Chelsea for years. And so obviously I went out with the guy who had cheated on everyone on it. Logic. But yeah, so I met him in a nightclub. My best friend who was living with me at the time, she was on the show. And so I was very engulfed in that show. I had met a couple of the other cast members and we were all partying a lot in the same area. I was living in Chelsea. Obviously, I met a lot of them. And so me and him were together for about 10 months and it was very tumultuous. There was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of other stuff involved. And we argued quite literally in 90% of our relationship. He was unfaithful. Shocker, I know. And he did not change for me. By the way, this narrative that like the guy who cheated on every other one of his girlfriends is going to change for you. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to look you in the eyes and tell you that that is not going to happen. If he cheated on the last one, the odds are that he's going to cheat on you too. That did happen, in fact. And I was devastated. He ended things, which is really out of order. Considering I'd been through the actual trenches with him, but I needed him. It was character building, as you say. And then I did proceed to sleep with one of his friends, which wouldn't recommend that either. But yeah, so after that whole situation had ended. I had moved into my phase, into my era, if you say, of tattooed men, the bad boys, you know? I was going to LA a lot and I was meeting a lot of musicians. And I mean, some of the stories that I have about these musicians, like, so wild. I'm not going to divulge them now because we're doing a little, if this is in a nutshell, this is in a nutshell, you know? But I have some crazy stories about these people, which I will divulge. I won't be able to say the names because they will sue me. But yeah, so I was meeting a lot of guys. A lot of them were like tattooed, bad boys. I was loving this vibe at the time. I was very much in my kind of like emo girl phase where I was like dressing in a lot of black. I was knee deep in the tattoos. I was like, any tattoo artist that can tattoo me, like this is scars of my past. This is all the decisions that I've ever regretted in my life. I actually have, I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of faded, but my ex's initials tattooed on me. And that was a 2-week relationship. Yeah. So I was dating a lot of these awful guys, which were just tattooed. Most of them were like SoundCloud rappers. Don't know what was going on with that. Just generally, most of them were drug addicts also. Like, I'm not talking like that, like they're like, you know, a little bit of weed here and there. No, I'm talking like full on heroin. Like I was down bad. Like for these guys, one did not care about me like at all. Like they literally looked at me like I was dirt on their shoe. Oh my God, that is quite traumatizing. When I say it out loud, it makes me think like, oh my God, I really must have hated myself. I mean, there is a quote that says, you know, you accept the love that you think you deserve. And at that time in my life, I really didn't like myself. This was when I was, you know, I kind of just come out of modeling, or I was still kind of modeling when I was with the sort of dating these guys. And then, you know, out of modeling and I was doing OnlyFans, and I just was not in a good mind frame, I think, you know, deep down inside. And one of them, oh my God, this is so funny. But like, it's so funny because it's traumatizing, but it's also very refreshing to talk about it. And I have spoken about it before. This isn't, you know, I mean, to my therapists, but it's nothing like, no open wounds. There was a guy that I went to rehab and I was dating. Me and him were speaking every day while I was in rehab. He was meant to come visit me, but then he got arrested. Like that, if that doesn't say it all, like I'm sat there waiting on my rehab to have my one visit of the week and he didn't even arrive. And then I came out of rehab. I introduced him to my friends. They were so scared. This man had face tattoos all over his face, like the anarchy sign on his face. He was nearing 40, like wild. And he used to drink lean. And he had knives in his house, for God's sakes. What is wrong with me? Like, what is actually going on in my brain? Like, help. And it's so funny. Now I look back at it, I'm like, that is crazy. Like, you are wild. So there was one guy, I went to New York to go visit, paid like £600 for all my bags to go there. I get there, and I luckily got myself an Airbnb because I do not trust random men. He again, like had loads of tattoos, was in the music industry. I get there, I go to his house. This man has a knife in the wall, and I swear on my life, I have pictures. Like I have proof of this. He had a knife in his wall. He had a hole punched underneath it, and he had no furniture. Like I'm talking no bed frame, like the least of the worries with a bed frame. He had nothing to put his clothes in. His clothes were everywhere. It was in Brooklyn. Like I swear there were sirens going when I walked in this house. And I thought, thank God I didn't stay here. But I took a picture of the knife in the wall, and I will actually like link it because it's actually so funny. But I did actually expose him for this, and he got really upset about it. But like at the same time, don't have a knife in your wall when you know you have a girl coming over. Like, I mean, he didn't even clean his sheets. Like, that's what most women are worried about. They're like, oh, he didn't clean his sheets. I'm like, oh, he didn't have a knife in the wall? I kind of hit a point where I just couldn't do this anymore. And after something like those stories, you kind of get to a point where you're just so scarred. And I think I couldn't understand how I kept attracting these men. And I was like, there's obviously something going on with me that I keep attracting guys like this. So I definitely had to work on that and work on myself and get to a point where I really just fell in love with myself again. So that's where I'm at now, where I'm back in love with myself and only dating men who are nice to me and don't have knives in their walls. So this is the part of the podcast where we do some quick fire questions. What is your favorite sex position? My favorite sex position, I don't know what it's called, but it's the one where you're lying on your front and the guy's on top. But you're like laying down like this, like a dead fish. And then the guy's on top and he's like, you know, That's my favorite sex position, or doggy style. Wait, the next question is so funny because I feel like I've answered this already, but what is the biggest red flag you've ignored? Probably a knife being in the man's wall. I would take a guess. And the thing is, like, that's probably not the biggest red flag that I've ignored, but it's definitely up there. I would say probably the fact that they didn't like me and things like that. I would say the knife is the biggest red flag because for obvious reasons. Best sex tip. My best sex tip is probably, I mean, this is a hard one. I don't know. I'm very boring in bed, which I think probably comes across as quite a shock to a lot of people because I do what I do. But be as lazy as you can as a woman, just like, because the guy's just going to take over. Like, a lot of the time, I'm just like, I really cannot be bothered. And you know how men are. They're like, let's go. And you're like, I just do the dead fish. I'm just kind of like, I'm tired. Like, no, I want you to, wait, do you know what I always say? I always go, I want you to fuck me just so that they have to do it to me and I don't have to do anything. I know it's really cheeky, but like, I'm always just like, no, I want you to like destroy me because I'm like, I don't want to do anything. Like, I'm over it already before I even began. So yeah, just pretend to be really lazy and then they'll do it all for you. Biggest ick. I mean, I've had many different icks throughout the years. So I've got some really strange ones. But right now, I would say guys being a little bit too forward, that's a huge ick to me. I like a guy to be a bit like cool and not super like forward with me. When guys are just begging it, it's like, get off me. You know, when you've told a guy like, okay, I'm good. And they just keep trying to kiss you. And they make that face when they're like approaching you to kiss. And you're like, no. They like close their eyes and they're like, and you're like, that's quite literally disgusting. That's what I see in my nightmares. Thank you for becoming my sleep paralysis demon. Worst thing anyone has ever said during sex. Oh, God, I'm trying to think. I don't know. I've had a few guys talk dirty to me where it just like doesn't sound dirty. I had this guy do it where he was really posh and he was trying to talk dirty. So it was like, oh yeah, you like that? I was like, not really like Lord of the bedroom. I don't know. Like, it was kind of like, I felt like it was like I was having sex with like a member of the royal family. I don't know, like, I'm actually crying. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, it was just like, he was whispering in my ear and it was all very like, it was like very wet in my ear also, which was like not helping. And yeah, it was just very push. He was like, oh, do you like that? Yes, you like that, right? And I was like, oh my God. Like, it really just sounded like either I was back at private school, like my teacher was like asking if I'd done the right work, or it was like I was having sex with a member of the royal family. It was not the vibe. Anyway, yeah, so that's probably the worst thing that I've had said to me during sex. Where is the wildest place you've ever hooked up with someone? I have not been that outrageous when it comes to outdoor sex or when it comes to like having sex in weird places. I'm strictly kind of a bedroom girly. I've had sex in the tape toilets. Don't ban me from tape. I mean, not that I really go there anymore, but yeah. With somebody, and his bodyguard was standing outside though, so it was good. We were safe. It was locked down. And then where else have I had sex that's crazy? I've had sex in train toilets, done a forest before. I feel like that's pretty, standard. When I was younger, obviously not like now. You know, when you're younger and you can't have sex anywhere because your parents are home and their parents are home, so you have to like have sex in their car. I've had sex in a few cars. Yeah, it was probably the wildest places. I've not hit the Mile High Club yet, but when I get that jet, that is where I'm about to hit it, you know? Because I'm not doing that. I'm not doing economy bathrooms. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just not happening. What is good sex to you? Do you know what? I have such strong opinions on this. Good sex to me is when the two people that are having sex, or I mean, if you want it to be more, have good chemistry. You have to be synced. And it's so weird because you can be romantically interested in someone or find someone really, really attractive, but the sex isn't good. And you're like, why is this not working when I think you're great? I think you're really funny. I think you're really cool. But when you get in the bedroom, there's just nothing. Like you're like, ugh, your kisses don't like match up and they're using too much tongue, you're using too little. And it's just like weird. You just have to have that good chemistry and things will align. I've been having very good sex as of recent. Good for me. I know. And it is because we have very good chemistry and we're both very, vocal about what we want. I think you have to tell the guy what you want. If you're a guy, you have to tell the girl what you want. And things have to be spoken about beforehand or during. It needs to be done. It needs to be spoken about. Everyone needs to be happy in the realm of the sex world. How much money do I make from OnlyFans? I'm actually not going to say because I think speaking about money is crude. But I do make a killing. Mummy's rich. Do you want another tattoo? If so, what do you want? I'm done with the tattoos. I'm gonna put that gun down, and we're never gonna touch that again. After my face tattoo, I haven't got a single one since. For obvious reasons, I think at that point I realized that I'd maybe taken it too far. I love tattoos, and I continue to love them on men, and I continue to love them on other people. But for me, I just think it doesn't fit who I am anymore, some of the tattoos that I've got, and I am in the process of removing a lot of them. So this segment is called Bedtime Stories, and this is where you guys write in all of your troubles, and I basically help you out with the advice that I have in my brain. Which, I mean, I'm not professional, listen, but I will try my best. So the first question is, hi Lottie, huge fan here. I'm in the doghouse with the missus at the moment. Shocker. The other day, my girlfriend was using my laptop and she accidentally stumbled across my OnlyFans subscription to your page. Naughty boy. Needless to say, she went absolutely ballistic. I tried to play it cool and told her she was just overreacting, but she wasn't having any of it. She reckons it's a total breach of trust and that I must fancy you more than I fancy her. I mean, well. Anyway, 2 days later and I'm still getting the silent treatment and have been relegated to sleeping on the couch. I think she is well overreacting. I love that. I think she's well overreacting. I'm a normal lad and we have our urges. It's not as if I'm cheating on her or anything, just admiring the view. What do you think? Am I in the wrong here or is she overreacting? Well, Jamie, I don't know. I don't know what to say to you on this one. I think that in a relationship, you set boundaries. And I think if this is over your girlfriend's boundaries and she's not happy with it, this is something that makes her uncomfortable, you have to respect her wishes. I think maybe explain that to her and say, look, I didn't really realize that this was cheating. I didn't really realize I was doing anything wrong. And I think, just say, if this is a boundary of yours, of course I respect it and I will unsubscribe to my page. As much as I'm going to be taking that hit financially, it's worth it to make your girlfriend happy. All right, next one. Hey Lottie, you're an absolute queen. Seeing you so confident about your body has really made me feel more empowered to post what I want without giving a fuck about other people's opinions. Yes, this is what I do it for. I've been with my boyfriend for a couple years now and he's honestly the best. We get on so well and I really love him, but there's one thing that's been bothering me. He never goes down on me. What the fuck? Dump him. No, I'm joking. I've mentioned it to him before, but he just brushes it off and says he doesn't like doing it. I know everyone has their personal preferences, but it's starting to make me feel a bit unsatisfied in the bedroom. Feel like I'm not getting all my needs met. How should I approach this? I don't want to pressure him into doing something he's uncomfortable with, but also I don't want to feel like I'm missing out. Amy. I don't understand men that don't like going down on girls because men who are straight like vagina. What's better than just going knee deep into it and just face to face with itself, and just absolutely going for it. As a woman who is bisexual, I absolutely love going down on women. So yeah, I can't really understand that, but just have a conversation with him and say, look, this is a need that I need met. And I'm sure you probably go down on him, which is even more unfair. He should 100% be going down on you. That is out of order. So yeah, have a conversation with him. Say, look, this is where I need my needs met. And if he doesn't want to do it, find someone else that will lick you out. Because trust me, there are plenty of men that will happily go down on you, I'm sure, Amy. All right, next question. Hi, Lottie. I've been with my boyfriend since we were in school and he's an amazing guy. But I've been feeling like I want to spice things up a bit in the bedroom. The thing is, he can be a bit prudish when it comes to that sort of thing. We've never really been all that adventurous. It's normally the same old routine. I worry that if I try to introduce anything new, he'll be a bit shocked by it and think it's come out of nowhere. I don't want him to get the wrong idea or think I'm not as satisfied. So I'm wondering, do you have any advice on how I can gently introduce a bit more excitement and experimentation into our sex life? Is there anything in particular you'd recommend to try? I'm not looking to do anything too wild, just keep something to keep things fresh and interesting. Jess. So Jess, I have a few ideas on this one. It doesn't take a lot to spice things up in the bedroom, and you don't have to really do too much, to be honest. It won't cost you too much. I would recommend sex toys is a huge, huge bonus in the bedroom. I use them honestly quite like a lot when I'm with guys. I use them by myself, I use them with guys. But I think especially for women who orgasm in different ways, I think it's helpful for us to have something that helps us get to climax, because for men, it's a lot easier. So I would recommend sex toys, a little vibrator, a cock ring, or do you know what's great is role play. This depends how confident you are, but even just putting on a sexy little lingerie set doesn't have to be anything crazy. If you're really feeling a little bit frisky, you can go for a little schoolgirl set or, a little nurse outfit. That will definitely help spice things up in the bedroom. Hi, Lottie. This is going to sound really weird. Probably won't. I've seen weirder. But I think my girlfriend's mum fancies me. Okay, that's definitely new. She's always been a bit flirty with me, but mums always seem to have a sweet spot for me, so I never thought it was a problem until now. The other day, I was at my girlfriend's place for her brother's birthday. Her mum was there and she had one too many glasses of rosé. Anyway, I went to grab a beer from the fridge, and as I was standing there, her mum comes up behind me and gives my dick a squeeze. Ah! Ah! I nearly dropped the bloody beer. I was so shocked. I imagine you were. That is a lot. I don't know what to do. And she had this really sly grin on her face. Sorry. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at your problems, but this is funny. She had a really sly grin on her face that she was getting a real kick out of it. I don't know if I should say something to my girlfriend about it. It's her mum, for crying out loud. But at the same time, I feel like I need to address it somehow. Should I confront the mum about it next time I see her? Or should I just try to forget it ever happened and hope it doesn't happen again? I'm at total loss here, so any advice you could give me would be a massive help. Liam. All right, Liam. First of all, that is sexual assault, so that is not great. But it is hard to approach because it is your girlfriend's mom. So if you don't want to lose her, it's a sticky situation. I would recommend, I would have a conversation with your girlfriend. I know it will probably be difficult, but that is not appropriate in any sense of the word, whether it's your girlfriend's mom, whether it's someone in the street, whether it's anyone that you haven't given consent to do that, it is not appropriate. So definitely have a conversation with her and see where it goes from there. If you're feeling really ballsy, maybe have a conversation with the mom. But if you're into it, then there's conversations to be had. All right, next question. Hi, Lottie. I'm so excited for your new show. I've started dating this guy and we've only been together for a few months, but he's already acting really possessive. The other day I was out with some friends, just having a few drinks and laughing our heads off, and this bloke at the bar starts chatting me up. Completely harmless, I swear. But as soon as he noticed, he comes storming over, gets in the guy's face and makes a scene. He's always accusing me of flirting with other guys when I'm just being friendly. And if I don't answer my phone straight away, he's instantly convinced that I'm cheating on him. I really fancy him, but this whole controlling behavior is starting to do my head in. Do you reckon I should just cut my losses and end things now before it gets even worse? Or should I try having a proper heart-to-heart with him about it? Right. Controlling men really just baffle me. And if you already feel controlled now, sweetheart, it's gonna get worse. I'm telling you right now, from somebody who has dated these kinds of guys, it normally gets worse and worse throughout the whole relationship. And if you're only dating him now, you're not even in a relationship, he definitely shouldn't be telling you what to do. So yeah, I think cut your losses on this one, sweetheart. You will find someone who enjoys that you get male attention. You know, obviously if this man who's coming up to you at the bar is being inappropriate, then him stepping in is maybe a good thing actually. But if he's getting angry at you for things that are out of your control, that other men find you attractive, that is because he doesn't want other people to find you attractive. That is because he wants you all to himself, which is controlling behavior, and I would run while you still can. So yeah, I think probably cut your losses on this one. I'm sure you'll find someone who is far better suited to you and, you know, actually finds it quite attractive that other men find you attractive. All right, guys, that is about all we have time for today. Thank you so much for listening in or watching from wherever you are. I am so excited for next week. I'm going to have an amazing guest on, and it's going to be a little bit more about them than about me. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on and listening, and tune in for next week.